मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य माणिस्थ श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेनाहुरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ May my speech be firmly established in my mind. May my mind too be firmly established in my speech. May there be perfect correspondence between thoughts, words and actions. O self-effulgent Lord, be revealed in my consciousness. May the truths of the scriptures shine forth in my life. May what I learn from them never forsake me. Let me live my life day and night according to their teachings. I shall speak what is appropriate. I shall speak the truth. May that protect me. May that protect the teacher. Om, peace, peace, peace. Let us feel the divine in us as infinite, luminous, blissful ocean of consciousness. And my ego is like a doll of salt jumping in it. The ego, this salt doll, is getting dissolved. Got completely dissolved. Disappeared. The delusion of I and world, subject, object. Enjoyer enjoyed. Everything is one without second. I have no bondage. No desires. I am the ultimate perfection. I am transcendent over everything. And immanent in everything. I am peace itself. Om. Peace, peace, peace. So, dear friends, let us begin today's study of this wonderful book, a great guide to leading spiritual life in the footsteps of Sri Ramakrishna. This book describes how the teachership of Sri Ramakrishna reveals itself. And we had been in the middle of the chapter where Sri Ramakrishna has gone to various pilgrimages, and we saw that he saw the Navadvip where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, and his vision is very helpful to see that Navadvip really had the manifestation of God in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He in fact could see the place where actually that happened, because they say historically Navadvip, the location shifted a little bit because of the river moving, changing its basin. So he saw where he got that ecstasy, and then after that Swami Saradananda, the author of this book, is describing a very important pilgrimage that Sri Ramakrishna took but not actually to see that place, but to see a great spiritual aspirant or a realized soul staying there. His name was Bhagwan Das Babaji, and the place was Kalina. So let us read about it. He went there, it is on page 620. In addition to visiting the holy places already mentioned, the master once went to Kalna with Mathur. Many Bengali villages on the bank of the Ganges have become places of pilgrimage because they were touched by the holy feet of Chaitanya. That it is. Oh, prayer. Okay. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Yes, I was reminded that we didn't say the prayer today. So please, Pritish, yeah. So let us recite the prayer. Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadattatam Bhuvi Granantit Bhurida Jana. So Sri Ramakrishna goes to Kalna, the place, like many other places on the bank of Ganges there, are sanctified by the touch of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and thus have been considered places of pilgrimage. We had seen this before, that it is the association with a great soul who has realized the ultimate goal, the God in one's life. That place becomes a place of pilgrimage for others to feel that association. The memories and the spiritual waves of that person staying there linger there. It is a thought field. The field, like there is the magnetic field, means if there is a magnet, then around that a field gets built, where if you put an iron nail or something, it gets attracted by that magnet. So that is the magnetic field. There is the gravitational field, magnetic field, and so many. Wherever there is a force, there is the field of that force. There is the nuclear field and so forth. So there are, they say 4 types of forces in science. So it is, and their fields are differently described. But there is this spiritual force, and there is the mental force, the thought field. That thought field is also there. You feel that thoughts, the waves of the thoughts, and therefore a place is charged with that. And thus you feel a mental peace there, just because of those thought currents. I was describing to a devotee yesterday that look how when people come here to Vedanta society, maybe just for secular purpose, have no spiritual feelings about it. They are not devotees coming for, say, maintenance work or for some business work, they visit here for some business or something like that. Even sometimes the delivery people, when they come inside, uh, they spontaneously express that it is so peaceful here. Now, what is that peace? Just think about, there is the busy road with all the noisy vehicles going around on this side, that side, a lot of construction activity going on, and so forth. So, it is from external point of view, it is not a quiet place, but what makes it peaceful, what makes it that, to make that you think, you peep in your inside, then it inspires you to do that somehow or other by making your minds quiet. What is it? The thought field that all so many sincere devotees, they meditate, pray, think of God here, and that generates a force field, and one feels that. That is one reason I tell people that when the things are open, try to come here physically to feel that field. It is, of course, one can listen online and all, but that is the second best option. It is better than not doing anything at all, but it is better if you can physically come here, because we have not yet transcended our body consciousness. It is, we do not feel that we have eaten unless the food goes into body, isn't it? What, Naomi? Yeah, it is. We are not yet able to eat just mentally. We have to eat the food physically, because we are tied with body, and therefore it is good for us to come physically here. Those who cannot come, there I suggest to them that join as far as possible live online, and right from the meditation time, and try to commune with that feeling, so that you will get that association, because that is very important. So the holy places are where there is the high density of such vibrations. So, because a great manifestation of God occurred there, and those thoughts, they were intensified by so many other people going for pilgrimage there and doing the spiritual practices. So that is how these places, they became places of pilgrimage. One of them was Kalna. So Kalna was, but that at that time the master had a different reason for visiting Kalna. He intended to meet Bhagwan Das Babaji, a noted Vaishnava monk. And the description of Bhagwan Das Babaji follows here. Bhagwan Das Babaji was then probably more than 80 years old. We do not know where he was born, nor do we have any information about his family. But everyone in Bengal had heard about his renunciation, self-surrender, and devotion to God. Towards the end of his life, his feet were numb and paralyzed because of the austerities, japa and meditation he had practiced day and night, sitting motionless in one place. Despite his old age, illness, and near inability to walk, Babaji's enthusiasm for chanting God's name, Hari's name, and the profuse tears he shed for the love of God did not decrease but rather increased day by day. And that is how, if the devotion is there, this we had seen this earlier, the contrast between the love for the worldly objects and the love for God. Important contrast, that the love for the worldly things keeps on reducing. The attachment increases, but the love decreases. That is the nature of our worldly loving connections. With God, when the love is directed to God, it is called devotion. With devotion, it keeps on increasing as the time rolls on. Instead of decreasing in time, it increases in time. As Narada, the teacher of devotion, mentions that it is pratikshana pravardhamana. Bhakti is, it increases every moment, because now it is getting attracted towards the real source of love. I had mentioned earlier that one of my teachers explained it so well with the analogy that if you throw a ball up, then although it is moving up, you see its velocity decreasing. But when after a point, therefore its velocity going up becomes zero, and then it starts coming back to earth, and now the velocity increases. The reason is it is going towards the true source of attraction. When we go towards different objects, then they are really not have any reason to attract us. It is the ignorance and infatuation that makes us run towards them. But that wanes. It is in one storybook of P.G. Wodehouse. It is mentioned that, well, as that story, that one man was telling to his friend about a girl, that, well, that is my heart always goes to her. She is the most precious this woman in the world that I know, most beautiful, and look how, and he was never tired of describing her. But then after some days, he sees another girl and tells to the same friend, "Oh, now you know I saw that girl. She is so pretty. My mind has just run towards her. And now I realize my love for that other girl was just a passing phase. It is just temporary something, but this is real." Well, none of those things are real actually. They are all temporary deceptions, that's all. But the love for God, it is real. It increases therefore. It never wanes away. It is so. That is how the Bhagwan Das Babaji, even at that age, was used to shed tears with just the feeling the name of God. We see that in Sri Ramakrishna's life, that how he would shed tears even though he had realized the divine in himself, yet his life was so full of devotional expressions. So that is how we say that Babaji's life was. And the Vaishnava community of Kalna was rejuvenated by his presence, and many Vaishnava monks had an opportunity to pattern their lives on his vibrant example and to follow his spiritual instructions. Anyone who visited Babaji at that time deeply felt the accumulated effects of his lifelong austerities, renunciation, purity, and devotion, and returned home with the experience of wonderful bliss. People accepted people accepted as infallible truth whatever Babaji said about Chaitanya's religion of love, and tried to translate his opinions into action. This is important, that infallible. It is not like the papal authority being infallible. It is, but what happens here is when one realizes God, then one transcends the limitations of mundane illusory life, where the delusion makes us, not see the truth. So this is the truth that becomes apparent and then gets translated back in the relative terms. So it is the transcendence of the mundane level of life, and then see the truth from there, and then express it in the our mundane, local, the language that is familiar to the people. So, thus, that infallibility is because of this, that it would come as the command of God. When with the touch of God it is coming to us, and so people always respected that this is nothing can be debated about it. This is the word of God. God is telling this. We see this, that the word of Holy Mother was always respected with now what authority she had really. A village woman, mostly you can say illiterate, and yet her word was the final word. So why? Because it was coming from a source that was beyond all the relative errors due to Maya. So that is the source of that infallibility. It is which Sri Ramakrishna people would argue, but yet it would turn out that what he said was true. That because the source was different. It is, we had seen many examples of that, and we'll continue to see some more. But when you are holding on to that level, then things always are true. And that is why in studying scriptures, my teachers told me always, and that is a common instruction, that you have to read the scriptures with devotion and still analyze it. Analyze it so that you can absorb it. It is, but devotion means know that it cannot be wrong. It is, your understanding may be faulty, but that person can never tell anything that is wrong. It is that Swami Vivekananda has said it. Swami Vivekananda, the knower of absolute Brahman, and one who is just holding the body to preach that message to us, that Swami Vivekananda. So how can he be false or untrue? If I have some disagreement, yes, then my understanding has to be properly purified about it. It is, there is always those who like to discuss the distinctions and differences, that whether Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, were they telling the same thing or different? Apparently so many different things are being told by them. But the teachers, they said, how can they be different? It is you who are not able to understand that it is only the same truth that is being manifested by the words of Swami Vivekananda. What Sri Ramakrishna said cannot be different from what Vivekananda is saying, because internally they are united. So, only because of the difference in circumstances, different necessities and contexts, it is expressing itself in different ways, that's all. One of my teachers told once that what he had heard from his teacher, that it is, he said that we used to sometimes discuss that whether Vivekananda says this, Shankaracharya says this, it seemed to be contradictory. And he told them that, see, both of them are united with Brahman, united with God. So, if I am not able to understand that they are telling the same thing, I should just put a question mark, a comment there, that I am not able to understand. Not that one of them is wrong, but I am not able to understand. And then follow what Vivekananda has said. Because that is the modern, that is the what path you have to follow. And then gradually you will see that there is no difference between Vivekananda and Shankaracharya. Those who just want to have fights, then they harp on these apparent distinctions, that's all. So this is what is meant here by infallibility. So the perfected Babaji was not only busy with his own sadhana, but also spent much time in spiritual discussions about how to improve the Vaishnava community, how Vaishnava ascetics should be blessed by implicitly practicing the ideals of renunciation, and how ordinary householders could attain peace under the shelter of Chaitanya's religion of love. People would report to Babaji whatever happened in the Vaishnava communities, the good or bad conduct of the monks, and so on. He would listen to them and after reflection instruct them accordingly. Those who live a life of renunciation, austerity, and love always bind people with their invisible spiritual power. People therefore obeyed Babaji's instructions without question and rushed to implement them immediately. Although he did not use spies, Babaji nonetheless observed all the activities within the Vaishnava community, and everyone felt his influence. Under his spiritual influence, the faith and longing of simple folk increased day by day, and hypocrites who were afraid in his presence had an opportunity to reform themselves. That they would get gradually reformed because of the so much love and faith in God was, they could see that. There is, when you have that surrounding, that presence, then you change, that there is this story that Sri Ramakrishna told, that there was a thief. He stole something, and then the police were chasing him. Now, to hoodwink the police, he took the garb of a monk. And so, seeing that there is a monk, he couldn't be the thief. The police went away. But then this thief thought, just by putting on the clothing of monk, it gave me so much benefit. If I actually really become a good monk, how nice it will be. And then he renounced everything and actually became a good monk. There is that actual incident also, that Pavahari Baba's incident. Sri Ramakrishna told this as a story, but in Pavahari Baba's incident, it is like that Pavahari Baba, a thief entered, and now what was there, he took it away and started running when he saw Pavahari Baba woken up. So as he started running out, took to his heels, this Babaji, he put some other things in a bag and started chasing him. And this Babaji was well built. He soon caught up with that thief running, and then said, "Oh," with folded hands, he said, "Oh God, you came to my this hutmate, and you took things, but I disturbed you by getting up and you had to go away. So I have brought all these, the remaining things, please take them." So the thief was just so overwhelmed. At that moment, what happened, I don't know, it is not recorded. But later on, that thief became a monk and he met Swami Vivekananda. That when he was telling this story of Pavahari Baba, one monk came, "You know who that thief was?" "I was that thief." So it is, the influence is very easy to say, infallible. That again, to invoke a quote from Narada's aphorisms, Narada says that how this satsanga, the holy company, how it acts, the procedure is not well known, cannot be described, agamya. It is, but it is amogha, that it is infallible. It has to work. So this is how that Babaji's presence was. During the 12 years when the master was practicing severe austerities driven by intense longing for God, and the power of the Guru was wonderfully manifest in him, various religious movements started in many parts of India, and then some of them are mentioned here, like Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj, and then various these Vaishnava movements, the devotees of God in the form of Krishna or Vishnu. And many great spiritual aspirants did actually come to Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna went to different places also, many times invited. So there was in Kolkata a place, Kolutola, and there was an organization called Hari Sabha, means a society meant for facilitating the devotion to Hari, the Lord, by that doing the chanting of the name, doing the kirtana, worship, and so many other ways. So he was invited once to that Kolutola, and then that incident, what happened there, is very, very interesting. One day the master was invited to attend a Harisabha service at Kolutola. Hriday accompanied him. Some say that Pandit Vaishnav Charan, whom we mentioned earlier, was engaged in reading and expounding upon the Bhagavata there on that day, and that master went there to listen to him. But we do not remember hearing from the master that he went to listen to Vaishnav Charan. Be that as it may, when the master arrived, someone was reading the Bhagavata and others were listening attentively. The master joined the audience and listened to the reading. The members of the Harisabha considered themselves to be ardent followers of Chaitanya. To remember this constantly, they put an asana, seat, on the altar and envisioned Chaitanya's presence there. And this is how the association becomes very important. In all devotional practices, this holy imagination plays an important role. Like you see, even in amongst Christians, the Catholics especially, you see that ritual, for example, sacrament, that ritual is envisioning the presence of Jesus in that food there, in the and then that communion is given, that, well, think of this as the body of Jesus and this is the blood of Jesus. I mean, taking in Jesus in the form of this. It is now people sometimes, because of thinking literally, oh, blood of Jesus, no, we won't touch that at all. So many Christian sects do not support it. But the idea is very important, and I feel it is very nice if you see the historical background of that idea, that in the old tribes there, Swami Vivekananda has spoken about it, that if some great person, very powerful or virtuous, then when you want to get the virtues of that person, then when the fellow is about to die, then drink some blood of that fellow, so that that person's virtues, the other qualities go into you. Eat that person's flesh, so that the qualities will get into you. Now, to modern civilized person, this sounds very barbaric. Isn't it, Naomi? Will you do like that? No. What, Charlie? Would you do like that? Yes?
I'll try anything once.
Oh,
No,
okay,
no.
okay, okay. I don't think Charlie will not even go there. It is even once he won't try. Even so, now it is that custom has gone. But in the olden those tribes, such custom was there, and then it was carried over to Christianity. Many such things get carried over because of the historical and cultural association. As they say, Christmas was considered the birthday of Jesus. No, it was actually a few days afterwards. But since that particular day was already a day of festivity in that community, they decided to that follow that, so that the community will get engaged. Anyway, they will be coming together for that festival. So why not use that occasion and let that be the celebrated as Jesus' birthday. So Christmas became, actually was taken up like that. Anyway, so it is the feeling is very important there, that yes, let us feel the presence of that God there. So in many of these Hindu practices, what is done is to feel the presence of someone, that person is sitting there. A seat is kept reserved, that here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is sitting. It is said that when Ramanam Sankirtan is done, in all branches of Ramakrishna mission, we don't do that particular part here, but at most places there is a special seat kept for the Mahavir Hanuman to sit. Rama is the master, Hanuman is the servant, and Hanuman is always tremendously devoted to Rama, and he is immortal. Hanuman is considered immortal. Those 5 figures in Indian mythology, they are considered immortal. So one of them is this Hanuman. So where does Hanuman go? It is said, and in the Ramnam Sankirtanam at the end we recite that verse, Yatra yatra Raghunath Kirtanam Tatra tatra Kritamastakāñjalim Bāshpavari Paripurna Lochanam Marutim Namata Rakshasantakam. That Maruti, Hanuman, wherever there is the name of the Lord, Rama is being chanted, drawn by that attraction, Hanuman goes there and sits listening to that. And so, since Hanuman is sure to come, a special seat is kept. You can see that in India especially, I don't know, here also they must be doing in some places, but a seat is kept for Hanuman. So the Hanumanji is supposed to come and sit there. So nobody else is allowed to go and sit there. So it is a ritual like that, but there is a feeling behind it. So for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, when they would read Bhagavatam or perform any Sankirtanam at this Hari Sabha in Kolutola, they would put a special seat for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a piece of mat would be specially designated for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nobody else would be sitting there. Now what happened? The members of the Harisabha considered themselves to be ardent followers. We read that part. Everyone bowed down to the seat with devotion. That is what is done, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is thought to be present there. It depends on how vivid one's imagination in this respect is. And so strongly one will be able to feel that. So, it was happening like that. On this day, like any other, the reading was performed in front of the seat which had been decorated with flowers and garlands. The reader was reading with devotion, believing himself to be reciting the glory of Hari to Chaitanya himself, and the devotees were excited to be drinking the nectar of Lord's words while in Chaitanya's divine presence. The joy and devotion of the reader and the audience were enhanced 100-fold by the arrival of the Master. While listening to the nectar-like words of the Bhagavata, the Master became overwhelmed and suddenly ran towards Sri Chaitanya's seat. He stood upon it and went into such deep samadhi that there was not even the slightest sign of life in him. As they beheld the Master's wonderful sweet smile, luminous face, and raised arms with fingers held up as seen in common images of Chaitanya, the prominent devotees were convinced that the Master had become completely identified with Chaitanya in that Bhava Mukha. Although there were external differences between his body and mind and those of Chaitanya with respect to time, place, and circumstances, the Master did not perceive these differences at all as he ascended to the plane of Bhava Mukha. The reader stopped and looked at the Master in wonder. Although most in the audience did not understand the Master's ecstasy, they were overpowered by the indescribable awe and wonder and remained calm. No one could say anything positive or negative. As they experienced indescribable bliss, all felt as if they had been carried away to an unknown realm by the powerful spiritual current caused by the Master. At first they were nonplussed, but then were compelled by that indescribable phenomena to burst forth loudly with Hari Bol, the chant that they do at such places. They all sing with the name, that name of Hari, on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birthday or on some such occasion. You will see many such places, even our Belur Math, that will be just sounding with this Hari Bol, 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 Manamar. That, oh my mind, keep on singing Hari Bol, Hari Bol. So keep on chanting the name of Hari. There is a funny incident that happened, and some 40 years ago, that some people, some monks from West, from our order in America, so they had gone to Belur Math on that occasion. And then they could not understand naturally, what is going on. And they heard it, horrible, horrible, so horrible, horrible. Why everybody is saying nothing is horrible? Why they are just shouting so loudly? Horrible, horrible. Anyway, so it is. So when then they were told it is Hari, Hari Bol. So it is. In Bengali, the ha becomes also in pronunciations a bit ha. So horrible. So it is sounded very much like horrible. So what is horrible? Nothing is horrible. Anyway, that apart, so this singing was going on, and nobody at that moment thought that, oh, what a terrible thing Sri Ramakrishna did. He just went and stood on that seat reserved for the venerable presence of Chaitanya. What a sacrilegious act Sri Ramakrishna performed here. Nobody at that time could think like that, being overwhelmed by the spiritual presence of Sri Ramakrishna. A wave, as it were, goes out. One cannot really describe that, how it happens. But even I had on occasions experienced that somebody is present there with that kind of spiritual awareness and in a mood to just scatter it. It is from that person, it is getting scattered, as it were, at that time. And everyone in the room, that space, were touched by it, including this fellow. It was such a palpable feeling. I am not much given to these emotional such ideas. But even I could feel very palpably that presence, very dense spiritual presence was there that anybody could feel. So, and then other thoughts are just gone for that time. Nothing else enters mind then. So, and so there is nobody thought that Sri Ramakrishna did something wrong or bad. So, at first they were nonplussed, but then were compelled by that indescribable phenomena to burst forth loudly with Hari Bol and to begin singing Kirtan. So, while discussing the nature of Samadhi earlier, we pointed out that when the mind goes into Samadhi while experiencing the infinite divine mode, connected with a particular name of God, it returns to the external world by means of that same name. We witness this phenomena daily while living with the Master. The same thing happened here when the Master heard the name of Hari sung in the Kirtan. He regained some body consciousness. Filled with love and devotion, He then joined the Kirtan party and began to dance gracefully in ecstasy, at times becoming calm and motionless in samadhi as he experienced overflowing spiritual emotion. The master's participation enhanced the enthusiasm of the audience 100-fold, and they became wild in kirtan. Who could then judge whether it was right or wrong for the master to occupy Chaitanya's seat? After a long time spent in the ecstatic dancing and singing the glories of Hari and Chaitanya, the crowd ended that day's exalted performance amid joyous shouts of the Lord's name. After a while, the master returned to Dakshineshwar. And then what followed? Well, the time is telling me that now I have to stop. But very interesting thing will happen. We shall see that next Tuesday. So we will meditate on this for about 30 seconds. And after that, if any question is there, we will take it up for a little discussion. Yes, please. Any question?
No web question yet.
Okay, very good. That's okay. So, any question here? So, we shall conclude with the closing prayers. We have an early closure today in the absence of any question. Sometimes it is good to end early. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahur Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. I had already announced a couple of times before about the spiritual retreat, the long spiritual retreat on June 12th. So those who want to join that retreat, they can see the information on the website. Please register as soon as possible. You can save $5 by registering early before June 1st. So, thank you.